Well, let's get the sense then from the Minister himself, how much of a difference this makes to his job. I do have the Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, with me this afternoon. He's visiting, or this morning, is visiting Baragwanath Hospital. Hello to you, Minister. I appreciate your time. I hope you can hear me okay. Give me a sense, these new powers that you've got in terms of Section 34.1 and 34.2 of the Electricity Regulation Act, how much easier is it to do your job now?
Yes, good morning, Gareth, and good morning to the viewers. Thank you very much for the invitation. It does make a big difference because now you are able to execute your mandate with some degree of authority that derives from a piece of legislation. It also helps to ensure that there's clear lines of accountability, and also the basis of relationship with other ministers will be defined relative to what your mandate is. And I guess that it is also useful at another level because the conversation hitherto has been about the powers as opposed to a conversation around what is it that we are doing to resolve load shedding. So now that that matter is resolved, we can be transfixed, just solely focus on the resolution of load shedding, take it to another level, put it into a higher gear and ensure that we build additional momentum in the resolution of this crisis. But yes, I think it does delineate responsibilities and there's high levels of clarity between the ministers in the ecosystem, and we're just not relying on personal relationships, but it is steeped in legislation. And of course, when I go to Parliament, whatever body where I need to account, I have to be held accountable against my mandate. Now the mandate is clear. Now let's get focus on resolving the load shedding crisis, Gareth.
I think many people would obviously want that, Minister, quite right. I am going to ask you about why you're at Baragwanath in a moment, Minister. I do want to find out why you're there, of course. But I want to ask, in this ecosystem of ministers, as you referred to, what is the pecking order? Because you can't all three have equal say on the load shedding crisis between yourself, Pravin Gordhan and Gwede Mantashe. Who's actually calling the shots between the three of you? One of you have to be alpha minister. Who makes the calls in the end?
Well, I don't necessarily think that that's accurate. If you come to think of it, there has to be a multiplicity of interventions. So let's take for an example Minister Godongwana, who is not being mentioned. It's about the conditions that are set for purposes of accessing the fiscal relief. So all we know also is that the Eskom balance sheet continues to be under serious strain. So it will require at some point for purposes of rolling out transmission, strengthening the transmission grid, you need a stronger balance sheet. There could be a case that you still need to provide some kind of assistance to Eskom. And then as it relates to the three of us, to resolve the energy crisis, you need to do two things in the immediate. The first one is to improve the performance of the installed generation capacity. Of course, Eskom does report to Minister Gordhan, but from the efficiency and the operations of these units, we'll be working with the various station managers and the management of Eskom to ensure that the engineering solutions are found, the issues around the procurement, the speed of procurement gets to be addressed. And then you need another intervention. In addition to what is being installed, the installed capacity, you need new generation. And that new generation is a combination of various renewable energy solutions, battery storage, solar PV, and of course we're also going to have in the mix gas. And that has to be procured and procured faster to ensure that we bolster our march towards energy sovereignty, but also making sure that they were able to provide relief to the current units that are finding it very difficult to perform at the levels that they are required. And for you to create space and room, you need new generation capacity. And in that instance, it's very explicit 34.1 that I'll be playing that role. But Minister Mantashe still has to working with me to ensure that we procure, and how we procure, we use the IPP IPP office. So there's existing technical infrastructure that is not being dismantled. The IPP office is the one that goes out through a competitive process, predefined, get people to respond, get to preferred bidder status, ensure that we work with those who are preferred bidders to get to financial close, and ultimately construct this generation project so that they can be connected to the grid. So if you come to think of it, I think it's around cooperation and collaboration. There is no single minister who's going to resolve this problem. Of course, the preeminent one is myself on the generation side, new generation capacity, and then working with Minister Godani, ensuring that the efficiency of the installed units it's at such a level that it makes it possible for us to eliminate the load shedding. Minister Mantashe comes much later when we have defined what are these sources of generation, and then working with the IPP office, he then initiates the procurement dispensation. Once the developers have developed these projects, they are ready to give us the electrons. They're meant to come on stream. There has to be transmission capacity to ensure that the electrons are evacuated. And in that space is an ESCOM space, and working with Minister Godani, making sure that there's sufficient investment as we speak now to strengthen transmission capacity and also expand it for purposes of accommodating new generation capacity.
So it's all about the new generation, which is good to hear under Section 34.1 and 34.2 for you, Minister of the Electricity Regulation Act. I see an emergency sign behind you. I think it's fairly ironic. You're at Baragwanath Hospital today. Tell me why you're there. I'm glad you enjoyed that one. Tell me why you're there. And I ask you this as well, because you're at a hospital, and we know that the other minister, which we've been talking about, that being Pravin Gordhan, is appealing a court ruling to have hospitals, schools, and police stations exempt from load shedding and blackouts. What is your view? Should hospitals, police stations and schools be exempt? You are at a hospital right now.
Yes, correct. I think there are two conversations. The first one is about whether it's technically possible to achieve exemptions and still effect load shedding. So if you come to think of where hospitals, locations, power, police stations and clinics are located, they are located in areas of concentrated consumption. I mean, we are here in Soweto. A number of households are connected to the substation that provides Bara, and I'm sure others are connected to substations that provides other installations such as police stations and schools and clinics. So if you deny the system operator the ability to be able to manage generation, to balance generation and supply, essentially you are removing the tool that is called load shedding, because load shedding is an exercise that admits that the demand far outstrips generation, and therefore you deny people and other installations, businesses, their right to access that electricity, because you need to balance the system. So if you exempt all of this, that ability is going to be diminished. And if that ability is diminished, then the system and the grid is not protected, and that's what can lead to grid collapse. So that's the one conversation, and that's what is taken through the court process. But there's a different conversation. Our view is that the state has a duty to ensure that there's uninterrupted supply of quality supply of energy to everyone, in particular strategic installations. And where we stand, hospitals are in that category of strategic installations. So we are here with the MEC, the management of Bara, and the management of other hospitals. They've come to join us here at Bara. What are we doing? We are computing the capital costs that are required for us to be able to invest in renewable energy solutions, so that we don't rely on supply from either ESCOM or municipalities, in the instance of Bara from city power. So we really want to make sure that they've got sustainable energy supply from renewable energy sources. Could be a combination of PV and battery storage. We know that the cost associated with buying generators is inordinate, the capital cost and also the operational cost, the diesel that is required to ensure that you've got uninterrupted power supply. So we want to use other technologies. So we're computing this, going back to Cabinet to say this this is the cost that is required for us to roll out, if you like, a renewable energy solution to ensure that there's a sustainable supply, uninterrupted supply of energy, so that when we come out, we know that we've got the backing of the financing to be able to roll out these solutions. Of course, it's going to be gradual. It's going to cost an inordinate amount of money. Our preliminary computations suggest that we need in the order of magnitude of about 10.1 billion rands for us to invest in battery solutions and then also PV, a combination of that. You need over 10.1 billion to be able to provide a sustainable energy supply to the 137 hospitals that, as we speak now, are not exempted. So that's the quantum of the money that is required. So it's important that we are able to get to the precise number. We're very accurate about what those numbers are, and then also the gradual financing of that is going to be important. And that's why we are here engaging with the leadership of Bara and other hospitals here in Gauteng.
Minister, I'm going to start saying goodbye to you in a minute. I'm sure you need to go in and have these important meetings. I want to ask you a last question. It's a two-part question. One is Fikile Mbalula, the ANC Secretary General, saying load shedding, blackouts, whatever term you want to call it, are going to be over by the end of 2023. I imagine he's making your life very difficult because you can't even promise that, and you're the Minister of Electricity. Why is Fikile Mbalula saying it'll be over by end of 2023? That can't be the case. You can't surely agree with him. And then two, car power ships. Are we plugging them in or aren't we plugging them in? Are we getting them or not?
Okay, I think the quickest way to get out of this very difficult situation is to ensure that we are able to procure emergency power, and we will take that emergency power in whatever form that it takes, as long as the cost can be justified. An emergency, in my definition, is a duration not more than 5 years in the context of energy generation. So we're looking to go through that route. If that solution is power ships, yes, we're confident that we have to go through the route of power ships. Of course, there's also issues of environmental legislation. Those conditions must still be satisfied. I think it's important, Gareth, that in the quest to resolve the energy situation, we are not going to cut corners. We are going to ensure that we comply with existing legislation and also provisions in that legislation that provides opportunity for exemptions. We will invoke those, but all of that will be within the framework of the existing law. So we are not going to introduce, if you like, extraordinary measures that undermines what is the parameters of the law. So the long and short of it is that, yes, power ships are in that mix, and like I said, in my calculation, it should not be a duration more than 5 years. I have already said, of course, the desire is to ensure that we resolve load shedding as soon as possible. I would really want to stand before you and the nation and say we'll resolve it tomorrow. But it's not possible for me to say that, because I know the length of time that it requires. Just the other day, I was at Kusile, and we know that there's 4 units that are going to come on stream. Unit 5 will be fired by October of this year, 800 megawatts. Unit 1, 2, 3 will be fired starting November of this year. The last one will come on the 24th of December. Each of those 3 units, they give us 800 megawatts. So you're talking about just between the 3 of them is 2,400 megawatts. If you add Unit 5 that would have come on stream in October, is about 3,200 megawatts. And then we're accelerating the return of Unit 4 in Midupi, is another 800 megawatts. So we are getting to 4,000 megawatts. We are making interventions. I'm sure you have already seen. We are starting to be gradually aggressive in relation to demand side. We will make an announcement in the next 14 days or so on the interventions we are making with various municipalities, working with City Power. We know there's significant amount of megawatts that can be clawed back. So it's an aggregation of these interventions that will help us to resolve load shedding. I mean, on Monday, we are in Mozambique meeting with my counterpart there. They've indicated to us that there's a possibility of excess power that can be exported to South Africa, in our instance, importing it from Mozambique. I'm sitting with him exploring how soon can we get that, how many megawatts. There is an existing transmission line, because you know of the SADC power pool that already exists. East. So I don't think there will be a major problem in getting it here. But we want the precise figures of the megawatts. Once I aggregate all of that, I know as we speak in terms of summer conditions, we are short of 6,000 megawatts. Once I get to a stage where I'm saying to you, Gareth, we can bank in the next few months 6,000 megawatts, I'll be able to tell you that by this date we would have been able to resolve load shedding. We are working very hard to accelerate the resolution of this problem. Many people are unable to watch these interviews. Even those who are watching, some of them are out of employment. They've lost their jobs as a result of load shedding. Small businesses are closing. People are really finding it difficult to go about their daily chores and activities. So it's our intention to resolve that as speedily as possible.
And on Fikile and Balula, as I say goodbye to you, Minister, sorry, I'm not sure if you heard that part of my question. Why is the Secretary General, I get the sense, undermining you? You're the Electricity Minister. You're the one that gives the go-ahead on this. Why is he coming out on ENCA and saying blackouts by the end of 2023? He's setting you up to fail. You agree or disagree? He can't be commenting like this.
Oh, no. The point I'm making is that there's pressure from everyone. So if you like, from the party point of view, is that please resolve this thing as soon as possible. And I take the opportunity to go and present at various structures of the party, but also more importantly in government and also through platform like this to share with you those interventions that we are making. We are working very hard to resolve it as soon as possible. And of course the SG has a view of the need for us to resolve it as speedily as possible. And we think that it's significant cost to the South African economy, to the livelihoods, and his views that do it as soon as possible. And in fact, in his calculations that this should be done before the end of the calendar year. We are working very hard, but I'm not able to confirm that that will happen by the end of the calendar year. What I can confirm now publicly is that we are going to see significantly reduced stages of load shedding. The levels of intensity are more than confident about that. And once we get to do all of these interventions, like I said, importing from Mozambique as an example, the issues around accelerating the procurement of emergency power, I'll be able to aggregate what are those megawatts that are possible. And on the basis of those megawatts, I'll be able to say this is the time that we are confident we'll be able to have ended load shedding currently.
You think by the end of 2024? Maybe just give me a timeline. Give South Africa a little bit of hope. Give us hope, Joanna. Just a little bit of hope. What's your best guess?
I'm saying to the South African people that by December 24th of December, would have had an additional 4,000 megawatts on the grid. So that's the Unit 5 in Kusile. That's the 3 units at Kusile. As I speak to you, we are at stage 3. So if it means that those, if they were operating today you will not be having levels of load shedding. But the measure of our ability to end load shedding is not necessarily on summer conditions, it's really on winter conditions. And 4,000 megawatts will still not be sufficient. At the current efficiency, operating efficiency of the units, it's not going to take you completely out of load shedding. And that's why there has to be that additional units that must come on stream from Medupi. Unit 4 must be very aggressive on the demand side. We must be able to procure this emergency power. And we are looking at about an additional 2,000 megawatts. So it's about the speed with which the market is able to respond, the speed with which we are able to connect that 2,000 megawatts on the grid of emergency power. So if you have that plus the 4,000 megawatts, you are at 6,000 including the demand side. So we are going to see substantially low levels of load shedding by the end of the calendar year. And I'm confident that as we move into early 2024, load shedding should be behind us. What that date is something, like I said, I'll come back to the public. Once I've aggregated all of these numbers, it's important. Otherwise, I'll be throwing, if you like, figures out there without necessarily having the assurance that I'll meet those figures. But what the assurance I can give you is that 4,000 additional megawatts by the 24th of December, because I've got a project timeline. I know where it's coming from. I know that, if you like, procurement, the contractors are on site. We went the other day to show you, so I'm sure about that 4,000 megawatts. Once I come back, we do Mozambique. I tell you how many megawatts by what time. I'll announce publicly by this date. These are the additional megawatts. Once you aggregate them, then you'll be able to see the picture of load shedding going. But where I am, I'm talking about the megawatts on stream, we'll give the country that 4,000 megawatts by the 24th of December, coming from the 4 units at Kusile, an additional 800 megawatts coming from the unit in Medupi in early 2024. I will tell you, working with City Power, working with Cape Town and many other municipalities, what is the saving will do on the demand side and what is the amount of megawatts. And then on that basis, once I've signed and concluded with City Power, provide them the kind of support that they need, provide Cape Town the kind of support that they need. We have exceptional relationship, Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis there in Cape Town, here also City Power in Tshwane, the previous now erstwhile mayor of Nelson Mandela. I'm confident that even the next mayor will commit to those timelines. We are confident about our ability to get this additional megawatts on stream. But I say to the country that those 4,000 megawatts will be on stream by the 24th of December this year.
And Minister, you can answer this as briefly as you'd like to. I know I'm taking a lot of your time, so you can answer as briefly as you like. SAFTU saying they want the Minister, Pravin Gordhan, to withdraw his appeal against the blackout exemption. Do you think the appeal should be withdrawn or should the court process go ahead? Last answer as briefly as you'd like.
Well, it's a determination that will be made by the minister. I did explain what the technical challenges are, and that must not subtract from our responsibility to provide uninterrupted quality supply to this installation. We are here to do our best to support hospitals. We'll go to police stations, schools and clinics to ensure that they've got quality supply, Gareth.
The Minister of Electricity, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, making time for us outside of Baragwanath Hospital. Minister, I thank you very much indeed. I'm sure many South Africans are getting some answers here, at least on many, many topics.